section now about natural patterns, and this is about recognising that there's so many patterns that happen and recur all over the place in nature, from the very smallest scales to the very largest. So I'm going to just take you through some of those and give you some examples. One really common example of a pattern that we see in nature a lot is the branching pattern. Actually, it might be easier to show you on this plant here. So we have a main stem, and coming from the main stem are smaller ones, and then increasingly smaller stems. And you could think also maybe about a river, the way the rivers flow, bringing together all these smaller streams and growing into a larger river. And then when it gets to the other end, into the sea, it spreads back out into the sea and creates a delta. So also the shape of trees branching at the top, but also at the bottom in the root system. And so what we're thinking about with permaculture is having an awareness of these functions and of these patterns and the related functions. So what is this doing in nature, and how we can then use those patterns to apply in our designs. And this branching pattern is very much about both a spreading out of energy or distribution of flow of some sort of thing, and it could be water, it could be nutrients, and also a gathering in terms of the river gathering, the roots gathering, so gathering in of nutrients and information. Another example of that is in this elderflower. It's a dried elderflower. If I turn it upside down, is the main stem that splits into smaller stems and smaller stems. So again, it's a branching pattern. And the function of that is to create this spread out shape that allows all of these flowers to be open to the sunlight and to pollinating insects as well. So creating this open pattern. And other places you can see is in the leaf structures. So in this case, creating again a wide open surface for catching sunlight. And an elder leaf and a hazel leaf. In a way, it's better to see it on the back, where you can see the distribution. So bringing in water and nutrients up into the leaf, but also as it takes in the sunlight and the exchange of gases from the air, feeding that back down into the trunk and into the roots. So that's the branching pattern as a real example. Another one that we see a lot in nature, and I've got a little example of it here. Oops. Falling. Is the spiral pattern. So you can see the shell growing in, or actually coming out. And this is the way that many seashells also grow, in terms of the growth gently expanding outwards. This is again an energy outwards motion. And we see this in weather patterns, in the size of hurricanes, right down to how water moves, and in the smallest living organisms in their growth. And then there's a radial pattern. So we've got it both in the side of this log, just you can see the stripes of the pattern of the log, and also in this fungus you can see the growth, concentric rings happening. So in a tree, it's seeing the rings of growth and being able to read what's happened, whether it's had long and or dry or wet summers. And in this radial pattern of this fungus, King Alfred's cake, also in the way that it grows. And again, it's about energy and distribution. It's about how sound waves travel, how water ripples in the pond when you drop something in, and having an awareness of that. And that links very much with the concept of zones in permaculture, covered in a separate unit. And just to name but another example, so this is a sea sponge. It's a lobular pattern, so lots of small things forming a larger structure in this particular case. And other examples are things like the hexagon shape of the cells that bees make and that wasps make to make their nests, etc. So we're trying to look at these patterns and really understanding their function. And as we observe, there's lots of observation in permaculture, really starting to recognise those patterns in all sorts of ways, in how how things grow in nature, and really getting an eye in for what they're doing. So these are mostly physical patterns, although some have a link to time and growth. Also want to talk about patterns in time and the patterns of nature in particular. And so overlaying the key pattern in nature that all life recognises is that of the day and the night. So thinking of the sunshine in the morning, that bright first energy, going to the heat of the day and being the most active part of the day, going to the evening in the west where the sun goes down, to everything calming down, and then going into the deep of the night where everything's still and dreaming and resting and recouping energy. And recognise that same pattern exists in the year with the spring, the summer, the autumn, and then the quiet winter. And the same pattern exists in the month with the moon, going from the spring, the waxing moon, to the full moon, to the light going down again, and right down to the new moon. So in a pattern of a month, also having that natural cycle that women are particularly familiar with, because often their menstrual cycle aligns with it. And then recognising that same cycle is the cycle of life also, that everything has that moment of conception, gestation, and then germination, and then beginning to grow, and then getting to some sort of maturity, blossoming, flowering, setting seed, maturing, learning, and heading towards wisdom, and then death, which brings new growth again. So that point of death and life being pretty much a transition into the same thing. So I really want to bring in that awareness of these cycles of nature and these cycles of life, and to be aware of that both within our own personal life and our stages of transition and moving through, using this also as a tool within permaculture to analyse things and to know where things are within the growth of a project and how to work with it. So you can use it as a survey tool, where is it out now, and also as a design and analysis tool, as in where does it need to be, and what stages do I need to bring in, and marking of the transitions between all of these. So really working with the patterns of nature and the cycles of nature, and the more we can align to those, the more we are in harmony with nature as well, and the easier it is to create projects that really work because they are aligned to the nature itself.